number 2 looks at writing equations in that slope y-intercept form that we learned in the last lesson, where it's y equals mx plus b, m is my slope, and b is my y-intercept. So the form yx, or y equals mx plus b, can be used to determine the equation of the line when you're given the slope and you're given the y-intercept. So in class example number 1, if I ask you to write the equation of a line that passes through the point 0 and 2 and has a slope of 5 halves. What's this point here? It's the y-intercept. The y-intercept happens when x equals 0. This is the y-intercept. The question just didn't say write the equation with the y-intercept. You had to infer it from the information. So now that I know the y-intercept is equal to 2, and the slope is 5 halves, what would my equation be?
5 halves x plus 2.
So y equals 5 halves x plus 2. Okay? In class example number 2, each line on the grid passes through points with integer coordinates. In each case, state the slope and the y-intercept, and then determine the equation of the line. So we're going to start with line 1, L1. So if I look at L1, what's its y-intercept? Where does it cross the y-axis? Negative 4. Okay? And to identify its slope, what we want to do is we want to find another point on the graph and then calculate its rise over run. So there's a point right here. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a point that has integer coordinates. So what is the rise over run? What is the slope between these 2 points? Say that louder. 1 over 3. So the slope is 1/3. So now that I have the slope and the y-intercept, what would the equation of this line be?
Y is equal to
1/3 x minus 4. I don't need to put plus -4. I could write it as a -4. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple minutes. I want you to do line 2. Okay, so if we look at L2, what is the y-intercept of L2? Where does it cross the y-axis? At 2. And what is its slope? Positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative, because it goes down and to the right. Right? So it's dropping. So the slope would be a negative 3 halves. So my equation would be y equals so negative 3 halves x plus 2. And this goes back to the last chapter. When you see a graph that rises from left to right, you should know it's a positive slope. If the graph is dropping from left to right, this slope has to be negative. So make sure you double check that before you move on. Okay, question number 3. Determine the equations of the following lines. So the first line is parallel to the line that's 1/3 x plus 4, and it has the same y-intercept as the line y equals 6x minus 7. So I need to determine slope and y-intercept. If it is parallel to this line, what will its slope be? The same, which means it would be 1 what?
1/3.
1/3. Parallel lines have the same slope, so it's going to be the same slope as this one. If the y-intercept is the same as this equation, it's -7. Because the y-intercept is that b value. So this equation will be y equals 1/3 x minus 7. Okay. Question B says write the equation of the line that has the same, or sorry, the line that passes through the point 0 and 9. What is this point?
The y.
It's the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is equal to 9. And it's perpendicular to the line that joins these 2 points. So what can I determine between these 2 points? Or what do I need to know about these 2 points? The slope of the line. So let's find the slope of that line. How do I find slope again? Rise over run, and when I have coordinates, I subtract. So what do I subtract first? The y's. So does it matter which way I subtract? Okay. So -6 minus 0 on the top, and then the x is on the bottom. 2 minus -5. So what is -6 minus 0? And 2 minus -5?
7.
So what is the slope of my line? What's the slope of the new line going to be?
7/6.
Why 7/6?
You see, you are reciprocal.
Yeah. It's perpendicular, so I have to take the reciprocal and change the sign. So then the equation of this line becomes the slope, 7/6 x, plus the y-intercept 9. Okay, so let's move into class example number 4. The diagram shows the display from a graphing calculator screen. The intercepts are integers, meaning that they are going to be a whole positive or negative number. Determine the equation of the line that's shown. So, using the computer screen, what can you tell me the y-intercept is? What did I hear?
Is it 10?
Why 10?
Because the scale's going up by 5. It's on the second.
Okay, scale's going up by 5. It's on the second tick mark. Okay? So now I need to figure out what the slope is. How can I figure out the slope? Rise over run. So I could use the 10 as my rise. What would I use as my run?
The y scale is 7.
Oh,
And 14.
would be 14.
Okay, I was looking at the x.
You're looking at the x. So the y scale being 7, so I'd have 14. So then my slope would be rise, which would be 14. And then what would the run be? Okay. Is it 20?
Yeah.
Because these tick marks represent 5s. Okay? And would I leave it as 14 over 20? What would I reduce it to? 7 over 10. So then my equation would be y equals 7 over 10x plus 14. Okay, graph that line and tell me if it matches up to what's on the screen. So I'm going to first of all change my window settings. -5, 30, 5, -5, 27. And y1 equals bracket 7 divided by 10 bracket x plus 14. Well, what happens when you press graph? What's negative? The slope is a negative because the rise is a negative 14. So now if we make that change, so I can insert a negative. So if I go second and the delete button and a negative, it'll insert it so I don't have to retype it all over. Graph. Did that make the difference I needed? Yes, it did. Okay, so I'm going to give you some questions to practice with. Before we go on to the next part. Okay, horizontal and vertical lines. Take a look at L1. What is the y-intercept of L1? 4, okay? So y-intercept is 4. What is the slope of this line? Rise over run. 0. The slope is 0. So if I use that slope y-intercept form, I'm going to get y equals 0 times x plus 4. What's 0 times x?
0.
So do I need the 0 times x there? No. So my equation is y equals 4. So take a look at the horizontal line L2. What do you think the equation of that line is?
Y equals
Y equals -6. Check it on your calculator. I go into, so turn my calculator on, y equals, clear this, y equals -6, and we're going to go to a zoom standard. Is that my L2 graph?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Look at L3. What is the y-intercept of L3? There is none, because it does not cross the y-axis. Okay. What is the slope?
Undefined.
Why is it undefined?
Because it's the vertical line.
It's a vertical line. So can I use my y equals mx plus b to write the equation of this line? Why not?
There is no information.
Yeah, there's no slope or y-intercept to use. Okay? But we can find an equation for this line. What do you think the equation would be? Here's your hint. If a horizontal line is y equals 3 or y equals negative, so the vertical line would be x equals -3. Can I use my calculator to verify this? Okay, use your calculator, verify it for me, Tyrone. Can you?
It says Y equals.
Yes. So why can't we use the graphing calculator? Because the equation must be a y equals. That's the abbreviation for equation, EQN. Okay? This x equals -3 means no matter what the y value is, the x is always -3. So if I made a table of values for L3, in my table of values, I'd have -3 and 1, -3 and 2, -3 and 3. I could plot all of those points. And this would always be -3. And the y would be whatever I wanted it to be. So a point, highlight, star. The equation of a horizontal line can be written in the form of y equals k. And it's a horizontal line that goes through the point of 0 and k. So it goes through the y-intercept. A vertical line can be written in the point of x equals k, where the vertical line goes through the x-intercept. Okay? So let's look at class example number 5. Determine the equation of a line that goes through the point -2 and 8 if it is parallel to the y-axis. So, if it is parallel to the y-axis, what kind of line is it?
Horizontal. Or, no,
What?
the y-axis. That'd be
Parallel to the y-axis would be
vertical line.
vertical line. So if it is a vertical line, which coordinate will always stay the same?
8.
The x or the y? If it's a vertical line, which one's going to stay the same? The x or the y?
X.
The x. If I think -2 and 8 is right here, so our vertical line is going to go this way. So this is going to be an x equals -2. If I am parallel to the x-axis, I have what kind of line? Horizontal. So that would be the line that would go this way. And it cuts the y-axis at 8. This is a y equals 8. This one cuts the x-axis at -2. X equals -2. So I'm going to add questions 6, 8, and then 10 to 15, which are the multiple choice and numerical response.